Now introducing our next presenter, Melisa and Nguyen.
Getting ready for my TED Talk, and I haven't memorized it all yet. Hello, so this is me from about a year ago. Yes, I gave a TED Talk, but because of some unforeseeable circumstances, ASB, it's not uploaded as a TED Talk. Therefore, I just wanted to share it because a lot of blood, sweat, tears. This topic has a lot of meaning to me, especially on the ideas of remembering family history and where I came from. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy my TED Talk.
What is a name? It is something we identify with, yet for most of us, we never originally chose. Our names are gifted by our parents so that the whole world may know us by. With nearly 8 billion names out there in the world, it's hard to know them all. So I want you to make that one less person. I want you to look at the people that surround you and say to someone, "Hi, my name is." Ready? Go. Hi, my name is Melisa Nguyen. About 39% of the Vietnamese population have that last name. For 38 million of us, that last name stems from a millennium of retribution, colonization, and persecution. Which is why when I tried to look at my family tree, I got up to, well, about here. Within one Google search, I found out that by the time a family gets to their third generation, so my generation, oral history becomes lost forever. And this is so concerning because I realize if I don't remember the names of my great-grandparents, how will my great-grandchildren even remember me when I grow up? And if my name is lost and forgotten, who will remember the names of my parents or my grandparents? That is where I found the problem. Our lives seem so fast-paced with extracurriculars, school, and our jobs, there's a disconnect between my generation and its past. We are forgetting our family history. And for most of us, that seems to be all right. Oral history is defined as a method of gathering, preserving, and interpreting the voices and memories of people, communities, and participants in past events. Historians have often pointed out that because the interpretation of oral history is based on the narrator's interpretation, there are flaws and biases that raise a concern over the validity and reliability of oral history. However, oral history does something that textbooks cannot. Oral history paints a face to a forgotten name. And this is so important when, if you think about it, how in the past, the history that's collected between the white, Western, and European world is so much greater compared to those who have been colonized and enslaved. The whitewashing of history has created an unbalanced narrative for people of color, which is why through oral history and through passing stories down through generations, it's one of the main forms of recollection for those that are represented. Jessica Webster, a digital initiatives librarian, who focuses on preserving histories of those underrepresented, found an alarming discovery. While looking at the biggest and oldest archival journal in the US, titled The American Archivist, she found that out of all the articles since 1938, only about 143 of them came up with titles of underrepresented people like immigrants, African Americans, or civil rights movement workers. This is where the problem starts. Now you can see this as well as several other graphs, as well as other historical publications. So think about it from my perspective. How in America, nearly 79% of all teachers are white. Or how in the US, states are not required to adhere to any academic content standards, especially for history courses. For reference, here's the same textbook, but in different states, California and Texas, on African Americans, gender and sexuality, as well as immigration and nativism. history is often molded to fit certain agendas, which is why it's important to know history, both good and bad. To know history from these textbooks, but also as well from our own personal recollection. Which brings me back to my family tree. My grandpa, Ngoai. I've been calling him every day since I was about 8 years old. The conversation would start with me going on the phone and saying, "Raise your ears, hi, Ngoai!" And then after that, I would ask him questions like, "How's the weather today? What'd you eat for dinner? How are you doing?" Then I'd ask them the same questions the next day. "How's the weather today? What'd you eat for dinner? How are you doing?" And again and again. But the one thing that I did that stayed the same, I would always end up with, "Bye, Ngoai. I love you." The reason why I bring this story up is because this 80-something-year-old, when I was 13, wrote a whole autobiography about his life. 40+ pages, and not a single one of us 20 cousins had read it. Granted, it was all in Vietnamese, and us, speaking mainly English, had trouble reading it. So I did what my cousins could not. Over last summer, I translated his story from Vietnamese to English so that all of my cousins could read it. What I found in his book was that while I was asking these meaningless questions every day, I had a grandpa who was alive during World War II, French colonization, the Vietnam War, and the Vietnamese diaspora afterwards. My family's past has a place in history books. Yet, because of my own ignorance, and because I failed to ask, that part of my past was left to be forgotten. Which is so scary to think, because how are we supposed to mourn for something that we don't even know that we've lost? And that's why knowing oral history is so important. Through knowing our family stories, we get to experience and know ourselves on a worldwide scale. In a study done by psychologists and professors, in a "Do you know more about your family history?" they asked 66 14 to 16-year-olds about, "Do you know this about your parents?" The results indicated that students and individuals who knew more about their family past had higher levels of emotional well-being, higher levels of identity achievement. In another study done in 2010, the same results were found. Individuals who knew more about their own history had less anxiety, higher self-esteem, more locus of control, better family function, and fewer behavioral problems. So knowing our family history helps with our mental health. But something else it does is that it helps with making meaningful connections through communication. How would I know? Well, in the last 3 years, I've been a part of my speech and debate team. And this year, I created my own prose and poetry speech about the struggle of 3 generations, which I shared with people through numerous districts all throughout Southern California. The people who I've shared my speeches with felt a great fascination knowing about history from the way it was not taught in history books. The people that have heard my speech have found it interested and felt inspired to ask their parents about their family history. I'm also president of the Vietnamese Student Association at my school. From there, I created the first ever cultural conversations, in which I would gather cultural clubs, and we would, in a club meeting, ask questions about media representation. What's your culture? But more importantly, what is your family story? The answers range from, "I don't know," to in-depth conversations about their family struggles and how fortunate they are to be first-generation American. This is where I realized how important it is to know about our family past, yet we never get the chance to learn about it. Through knowing our family struggles, through understanding them, and by sharing them, we make sure we preserve our past, our identities. So, there are 8 billion stories out there to be told. 8 billion names. Not all of them we can know, but through knowing the stories of the people that surrounds us, it creates a facilitation so that the stories can be remembered. So, this speech cannot tell all the stories, of all the people I know, right? Because one day, Ngoai are going to be someone that you talk to, and then now they don't even recognize who you are. The grandpa that you called and said, "Hi, Ngoai," to every day is now going to be stuck to a ventilator that beeps and beeps and beeps until you're finding the words to say, "Bye, Ngoai, I love you." Because this speech cannot tell the stories of all these people I know, all my friends, all my family, all my cousins, uncles, aunts. But by saying this speech, by sharing all our names, right? When you look at the people that surround you, those people that you just told your names to, I want you to think about, how are you going to be keeping your story alive? Because I, Melisa Nguyen, am doing everything I can to keep mine. Thank you.